Hello there. Hello there. I'm redoing this lecture again. I put one up on the internet, but it did not have a picture for some reason, so I'm trying to figure that out. So hopefully this goes better. We're starting off with drawing Bohr shells. Now, Bohr shells are models that represent the atom that look similar to a solar system. So inside the atom is the nucleus. And in that nucleus, we have two particles, protons and neutrons. And we're going to start off by, first of all, clicking on text box over here, right? Change that font size. That's way, way too big for this. It's a small picture. So we're going to pick the smallest size, which is 8. Okay. Now, we're also going to pick a color that we like. A good color for the center would be red, I guess. That looks good, right? And the next thing you need to do is make a small text box. And we're going to make that text box right, oopsie, try that one more time, right here. So I may have to double click to get that and make it a little bit bigger than that. Now, the second thing you need to do is go up here to where it says this PX is the font size, and this next line is the line height. It should be set at the smallest line height, which is 0.7. So if you'll change that to 0.7, things will look a lot nicer. Okay, it's probably set at 1.5 if you've never messed with that. All right, now what we're going to do is we're going to put the mass. Okay, so we're going to find the mass of the atom. So we're just going to use M for mass. Okay, and I'll put M equals. Push return, and then push P, and then it equals. Okay, M for mass, P for protons, and then last but not least, N for neutrons. Now we're going to use that pattern because that's the easiest way to find all the particles in the nucleus, and especially to determine the number of neutrons. So if you do it in that pattern, it will be much easier. Okay, next up. All right, now we're going to show the shells. Now how do you determine the shells? This one right here means that there's one shell, right? So each of these rows of the periodic table are actually the number of shells. And so to draw a shell, we're going to go down here to shape and pick the circle, and then pick a color, a light color, because we're going to draw electrons or dots on these as we go. So I'm picking this little yellow color or orange color, whatever that is. And I should be able to just go in here and double click, and it should appear. All right. Now, that's how that first one's going to be set up. And so what we'll do is we'll finish, or we'll set up or prepare the whole first row. And so we'll do that, and when we set up the first row, then we'll fill in some information, and then we'll go on from there. So go up here to the, oops, if you do accidentally click and touch something on the screen and end up with something weird that appears, go to your Control Z, and that should take you back one step. Great little tip. Okay, so go up to select, and then slide down to this little square here with the dots around it. Click on that. Now go in and surround that. Now make sure your text box is small enough or is included in there, or you're not going to have a text box. Push Control C and then Control V. That's copy and paste. Now you can always use the copy and paste units up here, but I like to use the shortcuts. And then don't click anywhere else on the screen except inside that nice little box, and move that over here to the helium on the periodic table, which is the second box on the first row. Okay, and we'll get out of there. Okay, now for this we need a periodic table. And so if you don't have a periodic table with you, you can go to the internet and just Google periodic table. I just like to go to images, and I'm just going to grab one. Make sure when you grab this periodic table, it does have the masses on it. Here, this looks like a good one right here. Right? That has everything I need right there. So let's visit International Year of the Periodic Table. Hey, I didn't know that. Well, they're going to try to sell us this periodic table, so I'm going to end up deleting this. Oh, there it is. And so there's our periodic table we need. Can we see that? Yes, I can kind of read that, so that should work for us. Okay, so now we'll go back to where we were before. We're in one of these camis. I believe it's this one. Yes. Oops. Whoops. And it's going to be this first one, isn't it? There it is, and we're right there. Okay, so my periodic table was right here. I'm going to move that in my tabs over close to where I was, so that way I can find it. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is this first element here. This is hydrogen. So I'm going to go to my periodic table, and I'm going to find out what the mass and the number of protons are. So I look here. This number on the bottom of this table, the number with the decimals, that's the mass. So it says 1.008, right? And that's hydrogen. And I want to round that to the ones place. So 1.008 rounds to 1. I'm going to place that 1. Oops, we have to go to text box. I'm going to place that 1 where the mass is. And so I said it was 1.000, whatever it was. We'll put a 1 right there. Press your down key, down arrow, and now I'm on protons. So I'm going to go and look at this right here, and this number up in the corner, this is called the atomic number, and this is the number of protons. And I'm going to take that number, and I'm going to type that where the P is. And this will be 1 also. Now to determine the number of neutrons is the mass minus the protons, because the mass is really the total number of protons and neutrons in the nucleus. And so what I'm going to do is find the mass, and then I'm going to find the number of protons, and then I'm going to subtract the 2. And so 1 minus 1 equals 0. And we now have the nucleus finished there. Okay? Now, next thing we're going to do is we're going to do the electron dots. Now the electron dots are in the shells, right? And so each electron is going to be represented by a dot. So if you go to drawing and you change this to probably number 2, and then change it to something dark, like a lot of people use black for these because it shows up really nice, and change that to black, and that will be ready for drawing dots. All right, first column, or first row, means that it has one electron shell, right? And since it's the first box in that row, that means that it has one electron in that one shell. And so I'm going to put a dot right there. Okay. Now let's go over to the other side. I'm going to do the electrons first. There's a reason. Okay, so I'm going to do these electrons first. Now this is the second box in the first row. Second box, 1, 2. And since there's 2 boxes in this row, I'm going to click, boop, put our 1 electron there. And I'm going to try to split them up a little bit and put the other one down here. Boop. And there's my 2 electrons in the first shell. And now that's filled up. That's full. It only has 2 spots. Look at the table. There's only 2 boxes in that row. Well, that's because the atom only has 2 electrons that can fit into its first shell. All right, now we're going to finish that up, but before we do, scoot over here to select, go to the box, click on that box, and now let's circle this, or square it, I guess, huh? Select it, so copy, and then paste. And we're going to take this and we're going to place it right here in the second row. I'm going to put it in the middle, and we're going to put it in the second row in the first box. We're going to finish that later, but we have that shell filled up, and that was the easiest way to do it. I'll show you here in a second, but let's go back and finish this. All right, so now we're going to go look at helium, and helium's over here, right? and we find its mass. Its mass is on the bottom, 4.002602, right? We're going to round that to 4. The number of protons is up here. It's 2. So 4 minus 2 equals 2. We've done this now in our heads. You remember, go to text box, and we've done this in our heads. If we click in here, it's going to give us a spot. So we said 4, we said 2, we subtract 4 minus 2 equals 2. And that first row is done. Second row. Second period, second row, and this is the first box. So as we're in the second period, or the second row of the table, that is because there are 2 shells, or 2 shells of electrons. So we're going to draw another ring around there. So let's go back to shapes, and let's pick circle, and we're going to change that color a little bit so that if I talk about it later, I'll just say, oh, it's the yellow shell, or the green shell, or the pink shell, so that way we can change it quicker. Okay, and I'll click here, and I find it's easier to draw the next shell over to the side, and then grab it with the select, and then move it over top. Now you can adjust the size, so round it up real nice if you want, but that's how I'm leaving it right there. And I'm going to click off of that somehow, or unselect. I guess I'm not going to unselect. Nope. And I'll leave that like that. Okay. I don't know why my dots have stayed on there. They're not supposed to. All right. So now we're going to go and we're going to pick the select button with the square here. And we're going to go down here. And we're going to take that and we're going to capture that image. There we go, and copy and paste. Okay, that doesn't have the other things on, but the other one did. So let's see if those disappear. They didn't. So let's paste again. And if those little marks stay on there, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to wait till I fill up this whole row, but then I'm going to go back and I'm going to just paste one more time and put it right on top. All right. Now, if you do click somewhere else besides that box, remember, you can always undo. And there we go. And I have that set up. Now, I'm going to put one more in there, and I'm going to see if I can get rid of this, or whatever I'm doing here. Why can't I get rid of that? Oh, it just disappeared on its own. Well, that's convenient. There we go. So if some reason it was selected, I'll get rid of that. All right. So there we have that set up. Okay. Now the reason that I wanted to fill that shell up before I copied and pasted, now my inside shell, which I filled up here in the helium, right, we're now larger than that. So that inside shell is going to be filled. And we might as well have them all filled. It'll save us some time. All right, now doing the electrons. I'm going to do all the electrons first, okay, in this column. So we'll start off, and then we'll do the inside after that. So I'm going to go to drawing. Right, I have black dots again. And so, oops, and open Apple Z, remember, or Control Z. I'm on an Apple. You're probably on a Chromebook. So this is the first column down, also known as the family, right? And I'm going to click here, boop, and I'm going to put that on there. Now I have one dot in the second row. So 2 dots in the first, 1 dot in the second. 2 dots in the first, 2 boxes in the first, and I'm in the first box of the second. This is the second box of the second. So now it's 2 dots in the inside shell, 2 dots or 2 electrons in the outside shell. Third box, 3 dots outside shell. Now you might notice I'm putting these electrons in like the sides of the ring. I'm doing this because this will transfer over to our electron dot model a little easier if we start doing this now. And so I'm just trying to set us up for the next model. And so this is the 4th box. 4 dots. After this, I'm at the 5th. So 1 dot on each side of this imaginary top, bottom, left, right. And then only after I have 1 on each of those 4 sides am I going to start to double up. Now, it doesn't really matter where I double it up at. I did the top this time, and that's where I started. But you can do it anywhere, and that's pretty much the way that's going to look. Now, the next one, I'm going to dot around, just like I did. When I get there to double, I'm going to double it. I'm going to double the next one. There's 6 dots in that second row, 6 box over. And you'll probably guess this already. You have 7 boxes in this row. This is the 7th box in this row. There's 7 dots in that shell. And then finally, this is a full shell. And so the full shell has 8 dots in it. We call this octet because it has 8, and that means it's a full shell. Now, before I put anything in the inside, you guessed it, I'm going to copy that. And then I'm going to paste it and put it right here. Now, I'm going to draw another shell on that in a second, but when I get to that 3rd shell, I want the insides filled up. And this way, I have the inside shells filled up, but I don't have typing on our mass, protons, and neutrons section yet. And it just makes it a little cleaner, a little nicer. So then I would go through this thing, and I'm not going to do all these because I'm going to let you go after this. Is click on here, find the mass, and this one is 3rd one down, right? And that says 6.94, so I'm going to round that to 7. The protons are 3. So 7 is the mass, rounded, of course, and then 3 is the protons. 7 minus 3 equals 4. That's the number of neutrons. And I would follow through that. Let's do 2 more because I have to show you, or 3 more, and I'll show you something here as we go. Now this mass, right? See the mass? So we're going to go up here, and this is beryllium, and this is 9, and this is 4. Okay? 9 and 4. So I go back, and this is 9 minus 4 equals 5. Right? Pretty simple method. We already have the outer shells done in that row. Now we just keep on going. Now I like to do the shells first, and then copy and paste, go down here, and continue. When you look at the real table, you're going to notice that there's a spot right here that has a bunch of elements in it if you look at the real table, right? This section, oh, I just grabbed the whole thing. I tried to write on it with the Cami, and I'm not in Cami right now. So this whole middle section here, we're not doing that. We're skipping those, okay? So do not use those. So, well, I guess it's only the 4th row. So when you get to CA, you're going to go right to GA. Okay? And continue doing the same thing we were doing. All right. Just make sure you look at those masses, and then you subtract the smaller number. Mass, protons, subtract neutrons. Okay, and that is Bohr models. Fill these up. I mean, I've already done 2 rows. The 2 shortest rows, I'll leave you with the other. And I don't think you'll have any problem with it. Thank you.